Welcome to Securing America with me, Frank Gaffney, the program that's a kind of owner's manual for protecting the country we love against all enemies, foreign and domestic, to God's glory and that of his kingdom. In the course of my time here in Washington, I've had the privilege of knowing a few members of the United States Congress. One of the men that I've been most impressed by is a congressman from the great state of Texas. He represents the people of the 27th District of Texas, to be precise. His name is Representative Michael Cloud. He's a member of the Oversight and Reform Committee in the Congress, as well as its Agriculture Committee. But he's also been a very vocal and, I think, influential constitutional conservative. And we admire that greatly, as well as his commitment to protecting persecuted Christians around the world, a passion that we share. It's great to have him with us. Welcome, Congressman, once again to Securing America.
Well, thank you. It's good to be with you, and certainly appreciate your generous, kind words.
Well, I mean it. And I got a lot to talk with you about, so let's get on with it.
Yes.
You have been, as a man with a district not too far from the border with Mexico
Right.
on the Gulf of Mexico coast, very familiar with what is happening as a result of what I think can only be described as an invasion of our country across that now open southern border, thanks to the policy of the Biden administration. Give us a
Correct.
sense, if you would, from the perspective of somebody on the ground in the vicinity, of how serious the problem is now from obviously a public
Mhm.
health, public safety, but also national and homeland security perspective.
Yeah, it's it's really, really, really bad and getting worse, and it's really sad because we know what to do about it at this point. You know, you had the Trump administration who inherited a problem and had to come up with a solution, and then you have the Biden administration who inherited a solution and has created a problem,
Yes.
and that's what's really sad. We know what to do. We know how to secure the border at this point, and we just have an unwillingness to do this by the Biden administration. And so the southern tip of my district is 2 hours north of the border. And our district's in what law enforcement would call a fatal funnel. There's a couple major highways that come from a couple cities in the border and go on their way to Houston. And we understand Houston to be the human trafficking capital of our nation, sadly. And so along those corridors and throughout our community, you see all kinds of horrific activity. You know, you'll have ranchers who find rape trees on their property. They'll come across dead bodies on their property. And then there's the day-to-day stuff of fences run over, thousands of dollars of property destroyed. Uh, Families are afraid to allow their children to roam their own property. Uh, and then so many just elements of criminal activity and crime, from license plates being stolen to help
Yeah.
cover for stolen cars and those kind of things, happening throughout the district. And
And
what we're
in a
doing
way,
is,
what you're describing as a district in the interior of the country, not
mhm,
right on the border, is a
yeah,
microcosm of what's happening really across the country now. It's said that every state is now a border state as a result of the migration that is taking place here. You have
mhm,
been, I think, quite properly very critical of Alejandro Mayorkas, the Secretary of Homeland Security, as the kind of point man on
right,
the wrecking operation that the Biden
hmm
administration has done on, as you say, the policies that worked in the Trump administration. You've called for his impeachment, as I understand
yes,
it.
yeah.
Um, Talk a little bit about both his record and the growing sense that he's completely unfit for the job and has indeed engaged in activities that would justify his impeachment.
Well, when you look at the results, you have to either equate it to gross incompetence or willful neglect, either of which make him unfit for the job. But
Yeah.
after having the
To say
opportunity,
nothing of active malevolence, which
right,
is what I attribute it to, actually.
right, and after meeting with him and after talking with him, you begin to understand that they. I put it this way last week on the House floor. if we were to ask the cartels to design a border security apparatus for us, it would look very close to what we have now. Because
Yeah,
truthfully, the cartels don't want open borders. They just want just a semblance of security, just enough for them to be able to charge their exorbitant fees, but really to act without any sort of impunity. And that's exactly what we have right now on the border. The cartels have operational control along the southern side of the border. They're beginning. We've known that Mexico in certain parts acts as if a narco state, and they're becoming even increasingly more so. But what we now know is that cartels, even in places like California, are beginning to set up their own enclaves and take over communities and neighborhoods and act
wow,
without impunity. You know, you had
yeah,
some years ago, you had one county sheriff's race in the United States where both candidates were running on a, hey, we need to clean up the cartels and get rid of their influence. Both candidates had already been bought by the cartels. And so that's the choice that American citizens had going to the polls that
my
day. And
gosh.
so we need
So
to stand strong against these cartels.
yeah, there's an expression, I guess, in the cartels lingo that do you want the silver or the lead? In some cases, you can be actually killed by them. In other cases, they'll
Hmm.
simply buy you off, and that is, as you say, now manifesting itself not just sadly on the southern side of the border where it's rampant, but also on our
Yeah,
side, is it not? When
right.
you talk about Mayorkas, of course, there are other reasons for grave concern about his conduct, and notably this latest disinformation governance board. But
Hmm.
whether it's the border, whether it's the interior insecurity situation, whether it's censoring our understanding of what's going on, for that matter, and our
Hmm.
ability to talk about it, this does seem to be a man who is a prime candidate for an early resignation, if not,
Yeah.
hopefully with the help of a new Congress, removal from office through the impeachment process.
Well, you
And
have a
as you look at,
secretary who, oh,
sorry,
I'm
go
sorry,
ahead.
you have a secretary who refuses to enforce the law. You know, right now the number one killer of young people is fentanyl, and he's saying that the greatest danger is white supremacy in our nation. Yet
Yeah,
we don't see that happening from a
right.
criminal aspect. I mean, there's always going to be pockets of extremism, you know, but he's just wayward when it comes to what are the real issues that are affecting Americans, and
Right.
is refusing to enforce the law.
Well, willfully blind, I guess, is another word for
Right.
it, if I may offer that one. One other data point, as I recall, there were something like 364,000 so-called getaways
Hmm.
in the past year, and I'm sure that's a conservative number, wildly understated, probably. And
Mm.
the thing that just very quick, we got to pause here in just a moment for a short break, but your thoughts, sir, on the likelihood that with that huge number, to say nothing of people that were admitting through the front channel,
Hmm.
are there people that are coming in that are either cartel operatives or
Hmm.
maybe jihadists or terrorists of other stripes intent on doing us harm in our country, whose exact nature and disposition and whereabouts we don't know? And how serious a problem do you regard that to be?
There is little doubt that bad actors are coming across the border. We've seen in recent months over 42 people on the terrorist watch list make it into our country. Even 10 minutes from my house, our sheriffs arrested a known human smuggler. So think about what it
Wow.
takes to be in that category already. A known human smuggler. They got to looking at the data on the phone. She had connections to MS-13 and ISIS. She was handed over to the federal authorities, and about a month later, released into the population in my district. And so
My God.
this is the
Just
bad
another
actors that we have.
constituent.
Just
Congressman, I beg your pardon. Hold that thought if you would. I've got to just take a short break. When we come
sure.
back, we'll talk about that. Also about food insecurity, a problem that I think more and
Mhm.
more of us are concerned about, and we need your advice on as well. We'll be talking more with Representative Michael Cloud right after this.